this is something we couldn't do when we all met 30 odd some years back. We couldn't record things to the cloud, and now we are. Technology has changed over the past decades, and so we can, remember this day, this event, this panel for decades to come. This will be available to future IU and National University and Georgia students wherever you are in the world. And so we have people coming to us from all parts of the world today. A couple of people here from Korea. Thank you for coming. From Japan. Thank you for coming, Yayoi. And we might have more people just popping in. There's been various people sending me emails today saying hi to Okhwa Lee and wishing her well. And so in your journeys, I might forward a few of those on to you. Your friend Young Dr. Im has sent me a note. And Dorit Maurer from Australia and others have sent me notes about. So tonight is, I thought would be a great way with my R678 class on emerging technologies to talk about the past, present, and futures of technologies. And what better way to do that but with, my colleagues who I went to grad school with. Now, I don't see Mihan here, so I hadn't heard from her, Okhwa. So hopefully she'll be joining us as well from Korea. But so we have Veronica Acosta, who's been working at Cal State Long Beach in public health for a couple of decades. And before that, I think at Texas Tech, and before that, University of Auburn, if I'm not mistaken. So, and her sister.
What about Veronica? Did you hear from Veronica?
She's right there.
Tom.
Oh, she's
I'm just introducing her.
She's on the other screen. Okay.
Hi.
She was hiding in the weeds.
Gosh, no.
Good morning, Veronica.
Good morning, Yayoi. Good morning, Okhwa. This is amazing. I haven't seen you for ages, and I was so excited to see you today. Oh my God. More than 20 years, it makes me cry. It really does.
Veronica,
Yeah.
I think that, didn't we go to dinner in
San Diego, Del Mar.
Yeah, in Del Mar. No, it
Long
was
time
in,
ago.
It's about 2015 is 2005. I mean, yeah, 2005.
Wow.
Around there. So that's been 20.
Well,
It's been
Huntington
15
Beach.
years. Huntington Beach. Huntington Beach.
Oh, yeah.
I have a photo of Curt levitating.
Hi, Cheryl. Do you know Veronica, Cheryl? There's Cheryl Narahara.
Cheryl, hi.
So we got a few people. Omida, welcome, Omida. Halima Nelson, welcome back. So yeah, we're about ready to get started here. And I just was saying that, we have Veronica Acosta, Dr. Acosta, coming to us from Cal State Long Beach, where it's 3 hours earlier in the day. It's still light out maybe there and much warmer. And I'll be out that way for AERA in April. And we also have on the panel with us, Dr. Tom Reynolds from the other side. He was in San Diego. He's now living on Miami Beach. So he's changed one beach for another.
What?
Actually, Curt, I'm in Colombia.
You're in Colombia, South America. Okay, so we have South America on here. Great. Well, welcome. So you like the beaches: Columbia Beach, Miami Beach, San Diego Beach.
Just the Caribbean coast of Colombia.
So Tom and I co-dissertated, and we studied computers and writing and keystroke mapping and all sorts of crazy stuff like that. And we're still working together all these decades later. We have 3 MOOCs books together with Tom Reeves and with other people. So it's great to have Tom Reeves with us as well. We pulled him out of retirement to come offer maybe he could ask some questions along the way, be co-moderating with me.
Yeah, there you go.
So and then we have Dr. Okhwa Lee with us from Chungbuk National University, a couple hours south of Seoul, but living in Seoul. And officially, last night in Korea was her last day of work, but it's still the 28th here in America. So she's got another 5 hours before she retires in America. So,
Curt, can I ask Okhwa a question?
Sure.
Why at the end of February? Was there some specific
Okay,
date? or-
our fiscal calendar at school system starts from the 1st of March. So February,
okay.
end of February is the last day of the last fiscal year.
Okay, a good, reasonable answer.
so if you've read the bios, you've seen Veronica's had a lot of grants related to public health, and she's been very productive and is very interested in blended learning, because I've helped her in some blended learning research that she's done along the way. And you've also read, if you've read the bios, that Tom Reynolds has had a Fulbright scholarship in Colombia before, and he's had a previous one in Peru as well as working on.
Tom Reeves had the first.
Tom
Fulbright.
Reeves has had one in Peru as well.
First Fulbright in Peru 20 years before mine. So
yeah, so we've got some Fulbrighters with us here, and then Mihun is not with us yet. I don't see her. Mihun, I'm not sure who's coming to us with the script at the bottom. So but anyways, we all went to Tom, Mihun, Okhwa, and Veronica, and I all went to grad school together. So I thought it'd be nice to get the past, present, and future views about educational technology. And so I have a set of questions. I'm not going to ask all these, but I've sent them to everyone ahead of time. But Okhwa has been very, as you see, very productive. She's got 20 books. She's got many journal articles. She's got a book chapter in my handbook of blended learning. She's from 2006. She's done work in many countries all around the world, but most recently, I think, with Nicaragua teachers. She's also done work in Finland, quite a bit of work in Finland, if I'm not mistaken. And I think I saw Uzbekistan on here, but I'm not. Myanmar, Bangladesh, Nicaragua, Ethiopia, South Asia, various South Asian countries, Australia, Sweden, Finland, Netherlands. So just she's been all around the world promoting the use of ICT in education. Cautious use, research-backed use. And so when the president of Korea has a question, he often will call on Okhwa to serve on one of his presidential panels so he can have someone who knows a lot about what's going on in the world of learning, design, and technology, or educational technology. So I just want to say, before we get started, we'll do this again at the end of the show, at the end of the hour. We have to do one thing to start this, to have official start. And Veronica, do you have the official start with you? Tom, do you have the official cup with you?
Yes, I do.
Veronica?
And here it is, Okhwa. It's except look at the glass disappears.
It disappears. So Okhwa, we want to wish you well in retirement. And we'll wish you well again at the end of the show. Veronica, I don't know where, do you have yours with you, Veronica?
I see, yeah, Veronica.
You do? Okay, good. So toast.
Toast.
And my students can have a toast there too. Feel free. And it is red wine. I will admit.
Actually, it's white wine here, Curt, but that's okay.
We will visit you in South America. So I want to, first of all, as I want to ask various questions, but let's start off with the field of educational technology and what the topics were that were important back when we were in graduate school, and how it has changed over time. What were the topics? What were the research methodologies being used back then? You know, how has the research approach changed since then? That was back in the late 80s. So Okhwa, I'll give you first, and then Veronica, and then Tom, and then if the other Tom would like to take Mihun's place, he could jump in too. So Okhwa, would you like to talk about what it was like when we were graduate students, what technologies, educational technology, the field was like, and what people studied? Yeah.
Okay, I left medicine, UW Medicine, in 1986. Then PC just came out. So it was very hard to study how to apply this new technology to support, to enhance learning. So during that time, how to distribute, how to develop courseware, how to train, how to educate, how to support teachers, those are very important topics. So how to distribute those new technology in education, that was the top priority. And when I came back to Korea, and when the Korean government started to do computer education in the whole country in 1988, that was the topic. So during that time, for us, educational technologists, we were busy to prepare courseware. During that time, it was called CAI, Computer Assisted Instruction, and how to educate teachers how to use the PC and how to use the courseware and how to put your power on the computer. Many times you have to go in the country and support them how to whether they have a electricity connected to the computer or not. That's what we did during that time. It's very different word now.
Tom was to my right, Okhwa was in front of me, 3 rows in front, and I said, Tom, she's really smart. But then she left. She went off to Korea, and I didn't see her again for 17 odd years till I went to Korea in 2002, 20 years ago. But Rich Lair, the instructor in that class where I met you, he says he's sorry to miss your celebration. He's traveling, doing research today in Arkansas, but please convey his best wishes to you. So,
do you remember what we studied in that class?
Yeah, logo. We studied logo and Seymour
Logo
Papert.
programming.
Yep.
Yep. Seymour Papert and the whole media lab crowd.
Yeah.
Let kids design their own learning. So Veronica, what was it like back in grad school? Tell them about that.
I think it's just the most fun that I've ever had in the entire life. It's grad school. Actually, so I'm a nurse by background, and Okhwa also was a nurse. And at that time, I was just thinking, I need to change, right? But I don't exactly know what to do. So, as fate has it, I was able to meet Okhwa through her husband, and then she talked about instructional media and technology, and I said maybe I should try it. So maybe I should take a couple courses in the summer and see, if it fits me, right? And I just totally enjoyed it because during that summer, I was able to TA for Veer DeVault, who had, who was doing a few projects in his classroom. And I said, I really, really like this. I like technology. It's so different from nursing, but I never thought that technology and health could be connected until later on. I just wanted to get out of the health field, wanted to get out of nursing and go into something different, right? And I saw that Okhwa was just having the most fun. And I said, look, I'm going to follow you. I'm going to do whatever you're going to do. So then I did. And I think grad school really made it so much fun for me. Technology so much fun. It was different. We were in the beginning of instructional media and technology at that time. Like Okhwa said, we were using Apple IIe, and we were using the dot matrix printer, and we would turn it on and off because it wouldn't stay on. But we were just having so much fun with it. We would leave, and Tom too, and you too. We would leave and go have a drink somewhere, and then come back, and just having so much fun with it. Well, fast forward 25 years later, here we are. Technology is just the most important part of health. And so especially during COVID-19, right? We've seen how technology really brought us all together, how it worked. And technology is all over health right now. I mean, especially in surveillance, you have wearables and sensors, visualization tools, you have interactive geospatial maps, for example, you have security and privacy preserving technologies, you have social media, which is a very important part of public health, right? I mean, especially now with we still have COVID-19, we still have COVID restrictions everywhere, and people are still socially distancing, you know, they're still following rules depending on the state, right? We have to, you know, we have to stay connected through smart, you know, through web-based like epidemic intelligence tools or something like that, right? And then telemedicine, you know, we're scared to go to hospitals, we're scared to go to our doctors, so we just, you know, we just call them and we Zoom in with them. They can show us our X-ray results or whatever results we have. We can talk to them virtually, which is really nice. So 25 years ago, what I thought, you know, was really separate from health, it was just something that was the wave of the future for me. Here I am now, here we are now using this. And actually in most of the grants that I've written for the state of California, actually from the state of California, I'm doing tobacco policy related work for different cities here in California. We use technology all the time, especially in assessment and evaluation. We use Qualtrics surveys, we use focus group interviews virtually. We do evaluation, developing questions, helping, especially, you know, how do you call this? Hard to reach groups like American Indian reservations, for example, right? We use technology to help them out in their tobacco prevention efforts. So it is part of our lives. It's part of our profession. And, you know, the wave of the future is out there. I just want to say something before I stop. But before I came to the US, I was working with WHO related projects in Asia. And as a nurse, my role was on reproductive health. So we would be deployed to very, very rural areas where they didn't have any doctors or healthcare workers. And there were missionaries there, but the missionaries would stay for like 1 year, but they would never come back because they were so far away. And so when while there, I would take care, because my area in nursing was OB, reproductive health, right? So I would take care of like teenage pregnant mothers. And there were many instances where you have teenage mothers who were really high risk. For example, they had like cephalopelvic disproportion, where the head of the baby was much bigger than the pelvis of the mother. And in instances like this, those where there were no hospitals, there was no healthcare, right? You just couldn't do anything. There was no technology to help you out. Or when there was like breech babies or whatever, there was no one. So the only thing we could do as nurses then, and we were actually community health workers rather than nurses, because nurses can have to be like in hospitals or somewhere else. But the only thing we could do is keep the mother and the baby comfortable until they pass. And that was the most heartbreaking, you know, heartbreaking situations that you could ever imagine being a part of. And I kept thinking to myself, what ways in this world could we reduce disparities in health and healthcare, right? How can we, you know, as human population, I mean, could we, or the question was, could we ever, you know, could we ever reduce those health disparities in our lifetime? And I've never seen that, except now with technology. There's telemedicine 2.0, where 24 hours a day, there are doctors all over the world who are willing to help out and zoom in very, very hard to reach areas if they needed advice on anything else. So technology is amazing, amazing, amazing. It prolongs our lives. It enhances the quality of our lives. It keeps us healthier. It keeps us happier. So anyway, that's all I wanted to say.
Well, I didn't realize Okhwa got you into this field. So so there's a lineage here, and so that's great. And there is the Jamboard, and Christian put the link down there. We do have one question in the Jamboard already, but I want to go to Tom Reynolds. Would you like to take a stab at that answer?
Yeah, I do have a question for Okhwa. And that, did you study with Beer?
Yes, Beer was my major
and I think
advisor.
that we should like kind of enunciate that there was a few people that really played important roles for all of us, and one of them was Veer DeVald, and he had the graduate seminar, the dissertation seminar, and he also had hexadecimal programming, another programming class that, and it's just kind of weird to say that now, that a lot of our curriculum was programming. It really was looking at, how these things happen in the computer. And this was because it was so software driven, right? We studied things like Rocky's Boots, which taught electronic, connections. We studied things like Oregon Trail, which was decision making. And it was really software based because there was no internet. And so even when you think about John Bransford and his media discs, and all of that information was contained on the media disc, and all of the problems and all of the resources were located locally, no internet. I remember sitting with Curt, we're trying to design this computerized prompting system, and we're sitting in the media library saying, wouldn't it be great if we had just whatever quantity of information scanned, so that we could have it on a disk, and then we could enhance the possibilities of what the students accessed to solve these cognitive problems, which was, the writing issue. And so I can't emphasize enough how media-based it was, and how we studied programming, we studied these, and it was all canned. Even the writing software was a canned package that you plugged into a disk, or plugged the disk into a computer, and that was your world. Well, now we're all cyborgs, Elon Musk is one of my favorite guys, and he has pronounced us cyborgs, and it's true. As I sit and answer students' questions as we're having this meeting, and it's just, we are connected to that device. And from the research that Curt and I did on writing, we saw the kind of the evolution of the oral tradition, where people could remember a lot of things, and in Greek mythology, it's all recounted in stories, those sorts of things. To now, we can't go to the store without, or at least I can't go to the store without jotting down the list of 8 things that I'm going to get and I send myself a text message. Well, that's cyborg land, folks. We are connected to that device for our social media, for our interpersonal, for our whatever needs. Veronica cited the WebMD. I haven't seen my primary care physician in years, and it's because of WebMD, right? And those sorts of things. So I'll withhold my real comments on what it was like being a curriculum person 30 some years ago, and what it's like being a curriculum person today. And then we can hopefully circle back and get into that part of it, though. But that's my take on it 30 years ago.
3 things I want to point out. Veronica got a slight mistake in hers. She said 25 years ago. It's really 35 years ago, but it's okay. We all skipped a decade somewhere along the way.
Kurt, I was going to inch up on that little by little.
just so you know.
And so 35 years.
So Tom's referring to a seminar we have with a guy named Veer DeVault, who's very open and let us do whatever we want. And we would take it for 1 credit. if we just want to observe, and we didn't have to do anything. We didn't just come, you get 1 credit, you give you all A. If it was 2 credits, you had to do a presentation. And so, it was kind of like taking over for the mass, it was like an apprenticeship process in effect. And so Vera DeVault was the name of the instructor, who was, very interesting and engaging person. But there is one person who's not part of this panel tonight, and that's because she passed away of about 8, 9 years ago. That's Dr. Kim Foreman. So we do want to, so we all want to get this on the recording. If you got my Tech Variety book, you know that I dedicate the free book to Kim Foreman. She died doing missionary work in Rwanda. She was in a Jeep, it rolled over, and she never seatbelt on. So she was part of us. She was one of us in our group. She was the senior one to me, like Okhwa was senior to me. But Tom, you want to talk briefly about the 30-year difference between 30, 35 years ago with ed tech and what it's like today, or what it was like when you were a grad student and what it's like today?
Well, as a curriculum person, I can comment on that.
Well, I was going to Tom Reeves, I mean.
Oh, Tom Reeves, sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, Tom Reeves, I can step on yours. I can take up your time too if you like.
That's fine, Tom. Yeah, well, I have to explain to your students that I'm a whole generation before these guys. These were kids compared to me. I'm 74, and I went to school, graduate school at Syracuse in the 70s. And so I did my dissertation using punch cards on a mainframe computer and carrying boxes of punch cards through the snow. You didn't want to drop those, by the way. But people were doing, I went to school with Bernie Dodge, John Hedberg, folks like that. And our particular program at Syracuse was the Division of Design, Development, and Evaluation. And you could go through the instructional design track or the development track, which was more production oriented, or the evaluation and research methods track. That's the one I went through. But I don't want to be, a curmudgeon, but I love all the, enthusiasm that Veronica and others have expressed about technology. But I'm still working, actually. Right now, I'm helping a group of WHO folks in Turkey who have been doing research on how medical schools in Turkey responded to COVID. Medical schools depend very heavily on experiential learning, hands-on learning with real patients in clinical settings. Well, in the early days of COVID, obviously we couldn't do that. And, thank goodness the medical and research areas were able to respond quickly and get us vaccines and so forth. And we've made a lot of progress. But frankly, educational technology failed us during the pandemic. Almost across the board, everyone who's not in our field that really understands the complexity condemns what happened. We were not ready to respond to the need to suddenly switch from face-to-face instruction to online and blended. And, there are lots of politicians now making their reputations on criticizing educators and actually attacking teachers and so forth. And I think part of that we can really attribute to the fact that our field hasn't progressed adequately in terms of its research. Yes, we have all these new wonderful technologies. A new one comes along seemingly every month, but we continue to do the same old research studies. And, is this new thing, flipped learning or whatever it might be, better than traditional instruction? A very stupid question, but we continue to ask it. The journals are full of that crap. And so I kind of criticize where we are in the many, many years. I graduated in '79. And so many of the issues we faced then, we're still facing today. So I'll get off the soapbox here, but I just, for the sake of the younger students in this class, I want to, express that we still have a lot of work to do. And we need you in this field to do that work.
So I'll point out that some of you who are reading the alternative syllabus, so we have two syllabi, the monster syllabus, which I designed, and a student design syllabus. The third week of the alternative syllabus had an article from Dr. Reeves in the ETR&D special issue. It's the final article. It won recognition as the best online article in 2020. And he talks about addressing problems, not just, what's the problem you want to solve? What's the issue you want to solve? And so, yeah. So Tom, Veronica, Okhwa, and the other, can I go on to question 2? Or do you have anything, final thoughts there on question 1?
I can comment on Tom's point. I think he's spot on, Tom. But the only thing I would add is that the pandemic, Spanish, the pandemic served as a filtering system, and a lot of those institutions that weren't on board and weren't set up are no longer with us. And so I look at it as a evolutionary sort of process that pandemics are one of those things that actually, hopefully, we're better positioned because we went through that, and now everybody at whatever institution is better prepared. And the institutions that dug their heels in the ground and said, "Not on my watch," they're gone. And so it's kind of a natural selection in that regard.
I will just add to the comments that we talked about technologies around in the late 80s when we were doing this hypermedia, multimedia, Laserdisc. A lot of that stuff led to what we're doing on the internet with hyperlinking and sharing of what our paths and our journeys and whatnot. So it's been an evolution.
Even Curt, even connectivism. Connectivism was not possible until there was an internet.
Yeah, I agree with you there. So Tom and I studied computers and writing, and we were looking at collaborative writing tools. 30 years ago, there were better tools than Google Docs. You guys love Google Documents. There were better stuff, that's just aspects and conference, all these things. So I want to ask the second question. I was going to ask you about why did you choose this field, but Veronica kind of set the stage. She explained what her goals were and all that. So I'll skip that. I'm going to skip over who you think the leaders are because that's a conference. But what should students who are master's students and doctoral students in ed tech today, what kind of skills should they acquire? How should they get those skills? So what do you think? What kind of skills do you see people needing today, and how are they going to get them? So Okhwa, you want to start us off again?
Research methodology is very important, and professional skills is not the skill that you can get easily. So you need a training for many years, and you need to practice that skill in many different areas. And still I'm learning. And by the time I retire, still I need to study more for methodology and data collection and data process and how to interpret those phenomena. And you can, if you have that skills, you can apply it in many areas. So always to my students and to my colleagues, I recommend highly that you have to study that research methodology with a big energy. And if I go back to Tom Reeves' comments that we didn't solve we face the same old educational problems now. That is very interesting comments, and I feel the same way. I read one of the documents that I read impressively was the report done by Morgan, Professor Morgan, if you remember Morgan. He was the leader of USAID team to advise Korean government how to how to enhance Korean education better. And that report was written in 1971. And he listed a series of educational problems in Korea. When I read it, I felt as if it was written yesterday. Same old problem. And it was written 50 years ago. So I thought maybe we are attacking the problem that cannot be solved, or that is not a problem. We have to take it for granted, and we have to do something. We shouldn't take those phenomena as a problem. It's a constant we have to take for granted, and we have to do based on that condition. I'm not sure. Same old education problem. And I think that's quite common in many countries in the world. So we have to think differently. Maybe we have to take history, we have to study history and culture more carefully so that we have to diagnose educational problem differently. Okay.
Yeah. Veronica.
Yeah, that's I totally agree with Okhwa and Tom about problems in terms of technology right now. It looks like technology is, it is moving so fast, it's going so fast, but we're still kind of far behind in terms of the process. For example, just take the case of COVID-19, there was so much confusion and a lot of concern about, say, testing, right? Because testing has been always so centralized. You take a test, you submit the test to a laboratory, the laboratory submits it to public health department submits it to the hospital, and then if you are positive, then and only then will. So I think there has been like an increasing interest in decentralized rapid diagnostic tests, for example, in order to widen access to testing, in order to increase the capacity and ease the strain of healthcare systems, especially their laboratories, right? But we're so far from that yet. And there's just so many, there's so many layers to decentralization. So that I think the future is a little bit more complex. We focus so much on updating technology, but we're not focusing a lot on, the processes that need to be in place in order for technology to be successfely implemented. Again, another example of this is, and this was actually it's Curt and I and some of my students, we collaborated on this project, and that was using technology to wearable technologies to, for example, track your steps, how many steps you're doing every day. So everybody now has a watch tracking their steps, their blood pressure, everything else, right? But then when you ask them, why are you tracking your steps? Oh, so I can be healthy. So what level of health do you want to be, right? And then they say, well, 2,000 steps is good because that's what people say. So people keep like doing things that, that they're told to do without really understanding the underlying reason why they're doing it. And so, okay, so first of all, let's go back to what is your purpose, right? Is your purpose to lose weight? Is your purpose to increase muscle mass? Is your purpose to increase your cardiovascular fitness, right? And then based on that purpose, then you're supposed to track your steps, and you're supposed to have like a whole health plan, and not just wear the technology because everybody's telling you to do it. You need to have 2,000 steps a day. So going back to the basics, I think is really, really important. And then in terms of research skills, that's where I really agree with Okhwa, is having enhanced research skill. And we need to start from undergraduate degree, even high school, to have those research skills, not only for their work, but also for themselves. And so in health right now, one of the things that in terms of looking for jobs for undergraduate as well as graduate students, one of the qualifications is really, do you know research? Do you know research? And we're grappling with that in our undergraduate program right now because, we don't have a lot of room for research courses in an undergraduate program. It's so jam-packed with, public health courses that research is something like on the background. But I think that's something very, very important that we need to have.
Mhm.
So in our program, our PhD, we dropped the minor. So a good thing to replace those credits as electives would be take more research skills. And we've just added a master's in qualitative and quantitative methods that didn't exist. Our inquiry program is part of Ed Psych, but they finally created a master's. So, and I agree with you guys. It's the research skills that I wish I would have, I kind of went too fast through my doctoral program and I didn't take enough as Tom.
Is that a surprise to anyone?
And so I regret not staying maybe an extra semester or two and not taking more research related classes. I've had to learn along the way. It took me a long time to figure out how to publish because of that and so forth. So I was at a disadvantage by not taking those classes. So Tom Reynolds or Tom Reeves, you want to jump in on what competencies and skills these people should seek to have and make them employable?
Is that deferring to me, Tom?
I think so.
Well, I want to comment on Veronica's comments, and that is the one thing that I was very surprised with was contact tracing and how technology really stepped in, and it really was impressive. Just as big data, just as data, a source of data, and how you track people. And I think back of the maps that we saw during the pandemic of cell phone usage and where people were and whether they were moving or whether that's all sorts of things. And so my one comment as far as Okhwa goes too, is that the big difference, one of the big differences in my eyes is that we're in the era of big data. And I don't think any of us studied or had the kind of the whole conceptual framework to understand how much big data can be analyzed and put it at our footsteps, or at our whatever, on our plate. And so as you think about some of these issues, and I'll give you an example. We're looking at what they're calling a dashboard. And the dashboard can track performance of each student, right? Each student, every student, and the dashboard can function as a kind of precision education where you track the student through a little CAI program if they have some sort of identified, and I hate the word deficiency, but they have some sort of identified need to upscale or upskill themselves in a certain area. Well, that's big data. We wouldn't have that data unless an instructor went out of his or her way to identify that student, identify those skills, build up the resources or whatever, and then track the student through that. Now, I've seen systems now where that's done in real time. That's done in real time in every class, and it's based on AI that kicks in and then tracks that student or provides those resources to that student. And there again, this is possible because we have all these resources. We can reach out and identify this resource or that resource and target the student that way. So
yeah,
I think
Tom Reynolds is at National University, which has funds to do just that and has a program.
Yeah, no, we're knee deep in big data. And like I said, I'll save the comments about curriculum till the end, but this is one implication, is that we don't live in the world of 30, can we say 35 now?
Yeah.
35 years ago, where Curt and I sat in that media lab And we wish that we had access to the sorts of data, even in terms of just information, just resources that we have at a finger click right now.
And so National U is a big teacher huge teacher training within California and throughout the country, I think now. So you may have heard of National. It's headquartered in San Diego, but Tom now lives in Miami and in Colombia, South America, and wherever he wants to live in the world.
Well, actually, Tom is without house now, so he doesn't live anywhere.
So if you have an extra room, Tom might.
Yeah, there you go.
And Tom Reeves, I forgot to mention earlier, is from the University of Georgia. He taught there for a long time until he retired, for 3 decades or so, and has now moved north of Athens. I forget what city, Tom, are you in?
I moved from Athens to Rome. So I'm now in Rome, Georgia, but actually I'm living on a college campus, Berry College, which is a very famous college where students all are required to work while they're in their higher education program. Look it up, BERRY. It's fascinating, but they built a continuing care retirement community here for senior citizens like myself. And so my wife is a retired professor of social work, and I was 39 years at the University of Georgia. I started in September of '82 and cleaned my office out about 4 months ago. So and I miss it, frankly, but that's a whole other story.
Tom, have they gotten wind of who you are?
Who? Oh,
The college?
Oh, yes. Actually, I gave a guest lecture here.
You're not retired.
Yeah, no, I'm not. I gave a
You guys don't realize Tom does talks all around the world.
Yeah, I was gonna say, as soon as they find out who you are, you ain't retired anymore.
But it's fun. I'm actually taking college classes here at Berry too. That was one of the main attractions. But I'll just say that if you have an opportunity to get evaluation skills, research skills are important, of course, but evaluation is a tool that has so many applications. If you're an instructional designer, developer, involved in production, if you can show that you have evaluation skills, that's really going to give you an edge up. When I was first starting my master's program at Syracuse, I had a choice of 2 assistantships. I could go work at the Erie Canal Museum, or I could go work for Dr. Ed Kelly in the evaluation office of the Center for Instructional Development. Mm-hmm. I chose evaluation and never looked back. Mm-hmm. I always wonder sometimes what my life would have been like if I'd gone to the Erie Canal Museum. Who knows?
You'd still be there, Tom.
Yeah, right, maybe so. But anyway, evaluation. Take an opportunity to get some either a course or some experience in evaluation while you're in your program.
I will mention there are MOOCs for learning, going back to Tom Reynolds, learning analytics and what Veronica had said. And one of my doctoral students, my PhD students, is she's getting her PhD and coming back to IU to go to the business school and get her master's in learning analytics or data analytics. So you can add certificates and other things to what you're currently doing onto this. I think I was going to ask a question about what's the most significant moment in your career, but I'm going to instead ask 3 questions from this audience, from the students in the audience here, and I'll let you decide which one you want to answer, Okhwa and Veronica and Tom. So there are 3 questions that are on the Jamboard. Are there any areas in educational technology where you thought back then that we would be more developed than we are today? Any areas that you really thought we would have made more progress on, and what would those be, and why haven't we made progress? Second question, what are the questions that will push our field forward? What are the questions that push our field forward? So where haven't we made progress that we should have made progress, and how can we go ahead further? And the third one, will there be a point when we can farm out our research methodology processes out to AI, when we can farm out what we do? And this came out in the last hour before you guys all came here. This someone else said. So any of those 3 questions, Okhwa, what would you like to jump in on?
I don't know what question exactly fit to my answer, but related. I would like to advise that learning analytics is a very important skill that the future of educational technology should go forward. And the learning analytics, I always have a problem in pronunciation in that word. That is the basis for how to apply AI in education, I think. So they both are related. So big data, learning analytics, you have to collect data through the methodology of learning analytics and apply it to AI in learning. We try to use artificial intelligence heavily to support students' learning, particularly recently in Korea. We see a lot of advertisement of learning support system for primary school students using AI. They claim that they can support the diagnose students' learning processes and guide them with a proper solutions, proper resources so that students can learn effectively and they can be a better performer in a short time with less energy. And I wonder whether we have enough data to guide them, to guide the learners where to go. I remember when I was a student back in medicine 36 years ago, there was a time AI was studied heavily to support learning. And AI was the expert system in math education was a big topic during that time. But very soon, we saw that the AI application for math education was dead end because the resources for saying that this is the right way for this particular person in math education, we didn't simply have enough data to say that. And no computing power to process those. First of all, we couldn't collect that proper data, and then no computer resources to process that data. But now we have all that technology so that we are starting to study the same topic. And I think that's a very good approach. But then again, the core question should come from instruction, not technology, not data, not AI. We have to understand instruction. So recently, I got into an area where how we can tell teachers do a good teaching or not, and how we can support them to be a better teacher. In a very old fashioned question, but still we have to tackle that question. We do not know completely how to, what is a good teaching and how we support individuals in better way. So all the technology and research methodology should based on that core question. What is good teaching? What is good instruction? What is good learning?
So Veronica, you want to try one of the three questions? Do you remember any of them? So where haven't we pushed ahead as far as we hoped? You know, what hasn't happened? And what questions do we need to pose to help push us ahead? And can we farm any of this out to AI? Okhwa kind of answered the second question about AI, and I'm sure Tom Reeves has something there. So maybe Veronica, so are there areas that we haven't really developed as much as we can? And are there questions that we can pose to push us ahead?
Okay, yes, definitely. And I very much agree with Tom and Okhwa in terms of what we need. And I'm always going to refer back to my public health experience and my public health work over the last 36 years, not 36, I was 25 years. But really, I have never left educational technology. It's always been there, regardless of whether I'm doing public health. But one of the things that I really always questioned was what is the evidence of the effectiveness of any new technology, especially if it is needed for wider adoption, right? So, for example, the current pandemic that's still ongoing, there are still many digital technologies that have not been peer-reviewed. They have been integrated into public health systems. They, some have undergone rigorous testing, but most of them have not. A lot of them have not been evaluated even by digital health evidence frameworks, such as, for example, let me think now, the framework for digital technologies by the NIH. So, and then we have like contact tracing apps, right, that have been launched in more than 40 countries, for example, but there's no current evidence of the effectiveness of these apps, right? So, for example, how do these apps yield identified cases and contacts? What are the costs? How have they been complied with? And then what are some of the empirical estimates, of these apps? So that was very challenging for us, like Tom said, especially during the urgency of the pandemic, because all of a sudden we started using all these apps, but we didn't have evidence to say that they were very effective. So I think going back to evaluation, one of the things that we really need now and even in the future is the evaluation of the effectiveness of these apps, the interventions. And so I think that maybe researchers, if this is something you were thinking about, researchers, companies, governments should publish the effectiveness of their technologies in peer-reviewed journals and maybe through appropriate clinical interventions. So that's just what I was thinking in terms of, digital technologies in public health. So there really is I would say a very, very urgent need for like coordinated international digital public health strategies. I'm thinking Yayo, I'm thinking Tom being in Colombia, I'm thinking all of you being everywhere, not just the US, but these have been very slow to emerge, the coordinated international digital public health strategies. We're kind of like on our own silos in terms of how we're implementing these strategies, but we don't have that coordinated effort. And so hopefully, in the future with WHO, the European Union, there will be more of a talk or approach on the use of apps and mobile data for COVID-19, for example, or other, how do you call this, diseases in the future or now.
So we'll go to Tom, and then after that, I have I think might be my final question before we open it up for everyone. So Tom, your
Tom, I'll defer to you this time.
Okay, can I share my screen here for a second?
Sure.
I think I can. Here we go. So this is something I was talking about with the Berry faculty and folks recently. The first question I thought was, is there something that you studied back in the day that is still, hasn't been solved and you've been disappointed about? Well, certainly it's the focus on traditional learning domains and the ignoring a critical domain. So the cognitive domain, as you know, we tend to say we value the higher levels, creating, evaluating, analyzing, and yet if you look at what happens in education, and this was especially true, I think, during the fledgling efforts to apply online education in K-12 education during the pandemic, we still are at the lower levels. We teach and test at the lower levels, but we've left out a whole domain, and that's the cognitive domain. And you know, the cognitive domain is what separates the really good, say, speed skater with the person that wins the gold medal, because that person had the drive, the will, the follow through to really win. And so we need to stress the difference between the cognitive, the affective, and the cognitive. This is very important in public health. All of us, you mentioned smoking, Veronica. Well, most people who smoke probably want to quit. They know it's bad for them. They feel bad about it. They'd like to quit, but they don't act. They don't go and really do it. It's the difference between knowing, caring, and doing. And we don't emphasize this enough in education. During the pandemic, the evidence is coming out that we've lost a huge percentage of students. They've just disappeared. They're not in school at all. And you know, there may be a lot of reasons for that, but certainly we didn't pay attention sufficiently to the cognitive domain. This has been around since the time of Aristotle. Aristotle talked about striving, desire, the cognitive aspect of mind, used the Greek term orexis, and he used a metaphor of a Greek charioteer. He said to be a successful charioteer, you had to have a driver, that's the cognitive domain, making the decisions about where to go and so forth. Then you need two powerful horses, the affective, that's the passion, and the cognitive, that's the follow through, the striving and so forth. So I think if we're failing somewhere, it's that we're really not providing our students with adequate opportunities to sufficiently develop their cognitive skills. And they're gonna, I'll mention one more thing in public health. So many millions of people around the world get sick in hospitals by diseases that are induced by healthcare personnel who don't properly follow antisepsis protocols. A study done in Australia, doctors reported that they themselves, when they were interviewed, 90% of them said, oh yeah, we do all that stuff. But when they had nurses track them, their behavior, it was 12% of them consistently doing the things they ought to do. That's an amazing difference. And that's why we have so many people getting sick while they're in hospitals. Anyway, I'll stop there, but I just wanted to mention that that's something I really think, if you're looking for an area to look into the cognitive learning domain and develop some programs and actions that can address that.
Striving, willpower, volition, and you know, it's all, you know, it's connected to goal setting, but it's just internal striving. It's connected to intrinsic motivation. Tom Reynolds, did you want to comment on before I go to the final question?
Well, first I want to say I couldn't agree with you more, Tom. I couldn't agree with you more. And hence the emergence in the embrace of social emotional learning across the board. You see it in programs across the country that 5 years ago, it just wasn't there. And finally, okay, this is a good thing. I think this will be a good time to comment as a curriculum person. And that is posing the question, well, what do you study? This is what this panel is kind of about, you know, emergent technologies or future technologies. If you had the choice, how do you inform yourself of what to study? Okay, well, curriculum-wise, there's been two movements. One movement is to take, and we call it badging and micro-credentialing, and we kind of modularizing little portions of the curriculum. And that's great, because then you can cut and paste, essentially. You can create emphasis areas that weren't there before. They weren't there yesterday. In fact, if you look at Indeed, the 5 most requested careers didn't exist 5 years ago. So what is the predictive value? Where do we get this prediction? Well, we're in an initiative now where we mine for data. We mine for data. And you know how they do it? In fact, the last chat exchange I had with Curt, we highlighted this, is that they go into all of the job announcements they can gather. And it's a huge, they're again, big data, big database. And they go into those job announcements and they parse for descriptors, right? And you know what results? Results of a very standard set of jobs, but also the results of jobs that we don't even know exist yet. And they parse for these, and then you say, 5 years down the road, they're going to look for jobs with these skills. And I'm saying, wow, that just blows me away, because that's predictive value. And as a curriculum person, then you start to say, okay, what sort of designs can we use to accommodate these new, and we call them degree qualification profiles. I don't know if you read anything about degree qualification profiles, but essentially the student customizes their own degree, and then you deal with the other end as far as the administration and those sorts of things. And they create this degree qualification profile that answers to a set of standards that are in some regards are predictive standards, because the actual jobs, and I could run down and cite the jobs as far as, you know, the cloud management jobs, we've talked about AI jobs, we've talked about, you know, all those top 5 jobs, they just didn't exist. They didn't exist 10 years ago. Hardly any of them existed 5 years ago. So you need, what's entered into the higher education curriculum space is this, you need predictive value. And it's there again, this is driven by big data. And as an institution, we mine every day for this, because we want to design programs that are, and it's a profit-driven institution, you know, actually it's nonprofit, but it's driven by tuition. So you want to design programs that are viable. And this is the data stream that's going to provide that information. So as a curriculum person, it's a whole new world, right? Because what used to be the case is that you were, and my brother, who's also an educator, he used to say, well, here you have these bricks in the wall of knowledge, and you fill in the bricks and you create programs out of them. And I'm saying, but that's not, we don't live in that world anymore. We live in the world where it's kind of the movable feast, in a Hemingway kind of metaphor, where you move the feast and all of a sudden you've got this, wow, you have this credential, or this micro credential, or this degree that I never thought I'd be designing a program to answer to the interest of that. And as a curriculum program, that's why Okhwa, that's why I'm not retired and you at this point. It's because it's really interesting as a curriculum person.
Keeps finding new interests, and that's why we chat at night. So he gives me lots of ideas, and he just says, "Oh, my brother's in it." His brother was the department chair at University of Utah, and then was dean at Iowa State.
UNLV. No.
UNLV.
He also UNLV, but yeah.
Yeah, and so his brother's not just another educator. His brother's a pretty famous guy, and if you've read anything about schema theory, he was working at the University of Illinois as a grad student when some of the original work was done on schema theory in the Center for the Study of Reading, and so Tom's brother is very influential on him and I, and gave us lots of advice when we were graduate students. So he's not just another educator; he's pretty cool guy and pretty famous guy out there. So I'm going to ask a 2-part question here. I'm curious. What have you read? Well, let me back off. So, part 1, what was the most significant moment of your career, if you were to pick one moment? And not tonight. You can't pick tonight as the one moment. But if you had to pick one moment, it was most significant. And then what have you done lately, or read lately, or no conference. What has gotten you excited lately in the field? So what's one thing in your career that's really a highlight moment, and tell us a story about that. And then what's got you excited today or recently gotten you excited, or you want to recommend to others that they might want to explore and read or do or whatever. So Okhwa.
Okay, it was a long time ago that I did not join the Ministry of Education. Instead, I stayed at the Research Institute. I came back to Korea, and during that time, it was the right time for educational technologists because the whole country wanted to introduce computer education in the in all K-12 education field. So they needed people who has knowledge and experience in that area. And I was one of the first person with that expertise. I'm not sure whether that's expertise then. I was a very baby graduate from that program. But anyway, I was one of the people who has slightly more experience in that area. So the Ministry of Education wanted to invite people with that background. So I was approached, but I stayed at the Research Institute and not joined the Ministry of Education. If I joined the Ministry of Education, I think I didn't like the culture of working culture in that organization, so I would not survive then. Probably I was much better off at a more free atmosphere. So research education, research institute was better place for me. So that was a very good, wise decision for me.
So what has you excited today?
Thank you very much for this event. And yes, you said not this event. Yeah. Curt, you mentioned that I worked at in Nicaragua to enhance the capacity building for middle school teachers with ICT applications. That was a big project, and that project was the ODA, Official Development Assistant Project, supported by the Korean government. And so we educated all math and English teachers in Nicaragua for 4 years. And working in Latin America has some obstacles, and we expected, but we had a very good partners, and teachers in that country was very supportive and engaged. So even after we finished that project, they continue to educate their teachers with our methodology, and they showed the improvement of teaching quality with the data. So that was the very important moment. I felt that we did something good as international group of people in Korea. They did some good impact in Korean education more than 50 years ago. So that was a very impressive moment for me.
And that's recent, right? So
yes.
So, and that also had some tense moments. She had to delay her sabbatical because of violence that was occurring in Nicaragua at the time. And so, educators could, while you might be hired by the government in Korea or in the US, you might be going into another place. So you might not know where you're going to utilize your skills. So I also had I went to Saudi Arabia several times and I thought I was being kidnapped once. They were just trying to extort money out of me in the middle of Riyadh at night. It's very scary. So sometimes you got to be cautious in who picks you up at the airport and who takes you back. Let's put it that way. And so Okhwa was cautious. She didn't go to Nicaragua when the violence happened. She waited till it was done and so forth. So error on the caution side, if you can. I'm sometimes not erring on the caution side. I hang out with, some crazy people like Sehun Kim there. Oh, no, I didn't mean Sehun. No, Sehun's a good friend. He did a postdoc at IU about 10 years ago. So, Veronica.
Curt, just remember you did a trip around Kona with Tom Reeves. That's about as dangerous as it gets.
The road trip around Kona in Hawaii, yes, that's a good point. Veronica, anything, a pinnacle moment in your career and what's got you excited today or something recent?
Yeah, it's an ongoing process, really. Once a student, always a student, right? And I think that I started with educational technology and then went into public health, dove deep into public health, and now I'm back into educational technology. One thing that I've learned is that, when I was a graduate student and all throughout, I always thought of educational technology as way up there. You need to know programming, you need to have a certain vocabulary, you need to be able to do all those things so that you can be successful as an educational technologist, right? And then I never felt myself as successful because of, because I don't know a lot of like very deep educational technology concepts. However, in public health, it's an entirely different story, because in public health, you work with communities, and 80% to 90% of the communities don't know exactly what educational technology is all about. So you have to really find a way to simplify what you've learned and really go down to their level, which may only be like 1/4 of what you know, and maybe 1/4, maybe 1/10 of what we all know, right? And be able to help them out in a way that they need to be helped. So I think having that relationship, knowing how to build rapport with your audience, whether it's your students or the community that you're working with, is still a very important component of educational technology. And I would like to invite future educational technologists here in your classroom to please join public health, because public health is one of the areas that is so far behind when it comes to educational technology teaching. Public health. How would I say this? Educational technology in public health. We have health informatics and all that, but people focus so much on the technology and not so much on the curriculum, the theory, because they really are not as knowledgeable about the theory, but you guys are. So I would say that, okay, going back to me, I always kind of go away, but going back to myself, 2 years ago, during the pandemic, I decided to go to FERP. And I know that Cheryl's here right now, is my colleague in Cal State University, Long Beach, but FERP means Faculty Early Retirement Plan, where you retire, but you can go part-time for 5 years to continue. So you kind of like ease your way into retirement. And that was the most difficult thing for me the most difficult decision for me to make, whether I should do it or not. And Okhwa smiling, I know that you're really, really happy with your decision, so we are kind of like transitioning still. But during this last 2 years, it's been an amazing transition for me, because now I can actually do the kinds of things I want to do. And that is like 15 years ago, I already started working with the community. I've always been working with community-based organizations and helping them out. And now I have the freedom to be able to write grants for them so that they can along with them, of course, so that they can fund their own programs on their own. And that to me is very, very purposeful. And I think that, doing something for your community, being of service, no matter what it is probably one thing that provides you with that sense of purpose that will never go away. But anyway, going back to the inviting people into public health, I would say the future of public health is really increasingly becoming more and more digital, and public health is recognizing the importance of digital technology, especially when it comes to planning during the pandemic, which can be very urgent. And there's so many key stakeholders into this process, like, for example, your technology companies, your communities, your government. So knowing policy, working with government leaders and all of that, right? Sometimes I felt like all these groups partnered only during the pandemic, but really partnering with all these different groups should be more of a long-term process in preparedness, rather than being partners only when an emergency is ongoing, right? So like I said, public health is is in the early stages. We are really far behind when it comes to technology. So I would really like to invite you to join public health as a special health field, because we need you guys so much in this area, and you just don't know how much we need you. But if you think about it really, and you want to work with communities, this is where you will really be happy.
Okay, thank you, Veronica. So we've got the pitch going, and this will be replayed all around the world. People will watch that, and they'll be in droves going to the field of public health. So I so hope. And that's a very optimistic tone, and I really appreciate it in these times, especially we see COVID times, we see that Ukrainian crisis, and all in the problems in Yemen and all around the world. We really do need more people in public health. And that's the starting point for everything, really, as Tom pointed out with his work with the World Health Organization. So Tom Reynolds, you want to point out something there?
Sure. There's been obviously any number of pivotal moments. Curt, I'll harken back to Curt and I had the opportunity to present our dissertation, or actually kind of our co-dissertation researches at AARA, and sitting in the front row were Skinner's daughter and all of the luminaries of our field listening to us present. And it went well on the end of the day. And so I think that was one of the big, kind of heartwarming and validating experiences, where you have your, Okhwa, I look at you when I say you have your big sisters. You have the leaders in the field, Beer Writer, Scardomalia, and the people that we really, really drew our research from, sitting there and saying, oh yeah, this is okay. You guys did all right. And we may not agree with everything in the methodology, we may not, but okay, it was good. And so I think that was one of the big moments.
Well, I'll point out that I worked with Skinner's daughter at West Virginia University. She had the office next to mine, and her husband was on the other side of me. So I think that's why they came, but maybe not, And so, but it was good that they were shaking their head yes and not shaking their head no when they were.
Yeah, that was right. That was, at that point, it was great. And then just like there's all of these arcs in a career, but it comes full circle. And as a matter of fact, just this afternoon, the head of marketing of Qualcomm, and I don't know if you're familiar with Qualcomm, it's a big chip manufacturer, head of marketing at Qualcomm reached out to me and said, can we have a conversation? I think what you do is very interesting. And I can see, and this is kind of the other part of the technology, I can see the coalescence and the coming together of kind of weren't necessarily people that rub shoulders with each other, but that have interests in common. And I think that the technology, maybe in that regard, has been a kind of a great networking space. And I think that we're having those sorts of emergent conversations, just like this, having these sorts of emergent conversations that would have not taken place had it not been for the technology. And so as a kind of a communication geek, I appreciate that.
Reeves?
Yeah, I think pivotal moments, it's all about people. And so, you know, Don Ely had a great impact on me, encouraged me to apply to the Fulbright program, and other people at Syracuse. But I really think that another pivotal moment was when I first met Curt Bonk. And I don't remember what conference it was, but Curt said, "Oh, let's go to dinner tonight." And I thought, oh, and he said, "Yeah, we'll meet in the lobby at 7." I thought, oh, this is great. This young guy wants to have dinner with this old guy. And so I go down there, and there are 30 people going to dinner with Curt, at least. But seriously, Curt introduced me to a whole amazing group of folks, Yayoi, for example, and Okhwa, and others that, you know, are who's who in our field. And so he's been an amazing networker. And so since I got to know Curt and become, I guess I could say I'm part of your cadre, or and got to write some things with you, it really did have a huge impact on sort of a second phase of my career. And I really appreciate that. And with all sincerity, I want to say thank you. What excites me today, frankly, it's being here on this campus with all these young people. Berry College was founded 120 years ago, or whatever it goes, its roots go back that far, but they only have 2,200 students, but they're all amazing. And they're just different, you know, and they're really engaged. And so I'm excited, you know, this maybe the last phase of my life to be still in a learning environment. And that's really, really exciting. I'm just helping some faculty at Berry who just got an NSF grant, and we're going to mentor 5 students a year. We'll give them a full ride, everything paid for their education in STEM, but they have to be first generation students. And those kinds of things I find really exciting.
You also work with women, female prisoners or incarcerated people in Oklahoma. Is that project ended, or is that?
Oh, I'm still helping with the prison project, but it's been set back enormously by the pandemic, because it was all based on volunteers going into prisons and teaching morals education about the cognitive domain, all that. But during the pandemic, we haven't been able to get volunteers in prisons. They've been quarantined for the most part. And so that's been a big problem. So right now we're working on adopting tablet technology. You can't have the internet in prisons, but you can bring in tablets, have interactive learning opportunities on those tablets. Then they're taken away and their information's downloaded, new information is uploaded, and bring them back to them. But they can't have internet access in real time.
And so Tom did retire like more than 10 years ago, I think, or approximately, right, Tom?
I retired in 2010. And okay. You know, now that I think about it, the very last airplane I was on was 2 years ago today. I was at a Muskogee State Prison in Michigan, and I interviewed 40 some prisoners on the 28th of February in 2020, and the next Monday they shut the prison down. So you know, it just seems so sad, frankly. But you know, but anyway,
It was 2 years and maybe 2 weeks ago that Tom and I presented at a medical conference in the University of Houston together. That was well, until AECT this year, that was the last conference before the pandemic. But
That
Tom
was
Reeves, look him up.
Valentine's Day.
Yeah, Valentine's. Look up Tom Reeves on Google Scholar, and you'll see there's Richard Mayer, who's like, like got 500 H, and then Tom Reeves is right behind him. So in terms of our field, he's probably done some of the most significant scholarships of anyone out there, and he's and on top of that, when he retired in 2010, if you looked at his career and what he published previous to 2010 and since 2010, it's probably pretty equal what he's done in the past 12 years since retirement to what he did in the previous 39 years. So his career has kind of accelerated post-retire. So it's not really retirement at all. And Tom Reynolds and I have enjoyed having him work with us on 3 different book projects and having them make an impact or influence, because talking about open education in the global South today is a huge topic, and we did one book on MOOCs and open ed in the global South. And so, yeah, it's been real, because I can always rely on Tom to come up with something better or more savvy in the wording if I'm at a loss, and they can count on me if they're at a loss. It's a nice partnership that we have. Because we all try, and Tom Reynolds is a writing person by nature, so he knows a lot more words than I know, and in different languages. So it's always been great working with both Tom and Tom. But I want to open up we're going beyond what I promised everyone. I want to be sensitive to people's needs and times, and I know people will have to go, but I want to make sure Dorit or Cheryl or someone else doesn't have a question that they want to ask or make a comment here before we close. Dorit put her camera on, so I imagine she has a comment or question. Dorit. You're muted, by the way, and she's coming to us from Australia.
Yes, hello. Here is morning, so good morning, good evening. Interesting, I got the invitation late and also already had some babysitting commitment this morning from the granddaughter. So that's what you do in retirement. But I retired last year in August after 33 years here in Australia in both Curt University, which I did my PhD in postdoc, and then in the last 21 years at Murdoch University.
And one semester sharing my office.
And this was one of my highlights, my sabbatical in Bloomington, Indiana. And really, as Tom mentioned, the network through Curt was amazing thing and very valuable. And that's when I also met, I think Okhwa, if I'm not mistaken, visited here in Perth many years ago, and we had one evening together, which was, I remember very kindly. It was a great evening. But what I wanted to say while listening, and sorry I came late, I'm still supervising a few doctoral students that I want to get to completion, and of course on my own time, and it's not paid and everything, but you have to keep going with the brain ticking and all the area of educational technology. But I think we have such a powerful group here that it is worthwhile to keep the connection, and kind of funny to say the retiree, but a very powerful group of women and men, and huge achievement from Curt to Tom to everyone here. So it's really worth keeping the network and producing something. So, and appreciate this group very much. And Tom Reeves, many years of connection, all these conferences, and here in Perth, who came to visit, especially Ron Oliver and whom I forgot?
Jan Harrington.
Jen, of course, and Jen Harrington. Yes, so good connection with everyone. So I appreciate and good luck for everyone to more productive years ahead.
If you're in my 511 class, you will have read from Tom Reeves and Jan Harrington and Ron Oliver in the middle of the semester on authentic learning. So if you've taken 511, R511, you can go back to the syllabus and read all about it if you've forgotten it, or you can attend the class tomorrow and find out about it. Anyone's welcome. I will have Sam Nadu and Veronica from Sri Lanka and from Fiji talk about open education resources at the same time tomorrow. If anyone's interested, you're all welcome to come back, and we'll chat about authentic learning as well. Thanks, Dorit. And anyone else have a comment or a question for our panelists? I'm going to pick on Belle, since she's my helper and they're all around. And Belle, would you came a little bit late, so you didn't get here for all the discussion, but do you have a comment or a question?
So I'm really enjoying listen to your experience and your recommendations. I'm trying to apply for a PhD, so I'd like to listen to your recommendation or suggestion during the period before get into the program, or do you have any recommendation for me?
How to get herself ready for a PhD. She came visiting her mother when she was an international scholar here in my class, and she sent in as undergrad and decided to come to IU for a master's. So now she wants a PhD. What should she do to get ready? Any suggestions for her? What are people looking for? Yeah.
Where are you now?
She's in
I'm
Bloomington.
at IU right now. Yeah, I'm in Bloomington. I have a job at IU right now, so I'm working full time.
Well, that's a great program there. They've had so many wonderful scholars come out of that program. So, there are other good programs. We have one at Georgia too, so you could apply there.
I told her that. Any other comments for Belle?
And Belle, I also think rather than just applying to programs willy-nilly, it's good to try to identify specific researchers and faculty that you want to work with, and then tailor your application to working with that person. The University of Florida, for example, I'm a Georgia Bulldog, probably shouldn't be saying this, but they are really one of the top programs right now and have some excellent scholars there, and they have a lot of resources. So that might be a place to think about.
Yeah, I think you're spot on, Tom. And if at all possible, find your niche. Find something that you can carry on in the long run.
Any other comments or questions before we go?
Bill, you said you work at IU campus. What kind of work you do?
For now, I am an academic coordinator at a Chinese flagship center program. So my responsibility is to training tutors and give them some professional development during the process. And also I will monitor and observe their training sessions and give them feedback. And we also will need to host several events, culture events, and to improve their language proficiency. So this is basically what I do right now. Mm-hmm.
Do you enjoy what you do?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, then that's the first step that your experience, your work experience can be a very good basis for your decision making later. And what you study for your professional work, for your study further, that can be based on your experience, working experience, and Chinese language teaching can be a very good area to develop your professional skills. So focus on your work experience.
She's also my TA in a couple of classes and interested in open education research. So if no one has a final question here, I have a question for Okhwa that we all want to ask her. Okhwa, what are you going to do in retirement?
I can't be as productive as Thomas Reeves. I cannot produce that many articles after
And
I
books.
retire, and books. But I would like to focus on my ODA projects. And that's because Korea was very influenced by those helps from outside. And there are many countries where our experience can be used effectively. So I want to do that work more after I retire.
I think you're going to do one more thing, because I'm going to send you, you're going to read my new book. I'm going to send you a signed copy.
Sure. And please include me when you write a new book.
We will do it together. I will come to Korea. We'll write it together. Yeah, Yoi, I want you to make a comment and get on the recording. And Kim's got the final question. I guess Kim has a question. So yeah, Yoi, you want to make a statement before we go to Kim for the final question?
Well, I let her make a comment that I'm very thankful to Curt to give me this opportunity. And before that, he connected with all of you here. And I was so happy to see Okhwa and Droid and Tom, two Toms here. And Droid, she visited Tokyo 2 times. So I could meet her personally. And I really enjoy having your friendship and hoping this continues. Thank you very much.
I'll toast to that and toast to Okhwa. Happy retirement, Okhwa.
Yeah, happy retirement, Okhwa.
Cheers, Okhwa. So we go. And by the way, I forgot, Umida is in this book. Umida, you have a chapter in here, right? Do you want to put your camera on and say hi?
Hello, very nice to meet you all. It was very engaging and emotional too, because we love Dr. Bonk, and it's good to know his friends and colleagues, and it's honored to work with him, and always a joy to observe his classes. His classes are not just classes, they are master classes.
They're events like today. Thank you. And Amina just did such phenomenal work in my classes. I used them as examples for more than, I shouldn't say, almost a decade now. I've used them as examples. She's been here for a while, and she'll get done soon, I think, right?
Yes, I should.
When are you defending?
Maybe May or August.
Hey, invite all of us in, okay. And so, Kim, last question, or Dort, you're going to say something, it looks like. No?
Sorry.
No, go ahead, Kim.
So who? Yeah.
Yeah. I'm so nice to meet you all here. And I graduated about 10 years ago, and as a postdoc, I work. I met Curt Bonk, and it was my very good chance over my whole life, because he has a lot of friends like here. And the reason why I'm here is that because I'm missing him, not to learn something, because I'm working as a professor in Korea, Hankuk University of Foreign Studies, and majoring exactly curriculum studies, not educational technology in here. I learned education technology in America, but I work here as a curriculum man. So I'm not really related with Curt Bonk with an academic field, but here I want to meet him again, and I'm missing him again. And finally, I would like to get some connect with the field of curriculums and field of education technology, because we have lots of commonalities. In curriculum fields, we are more interested in what to study. And I think in educational technology fields, people are more interested in how to teach or how to learn. So it is related. So some days I will I want to work with connecting and like this. So, and Dr. Okhwa, and I'm so happy to meet her again here. About 10 years ago, I was a student. She welcomed me so nicely. And I remember her nice attitude, and it makes me go further when I felt that I know students in here had a hard time before getting a job, but sometimes professor smiles makes students to learn again. And so in here, every professor and students here are so, I think it is a very happy people, and nice to meet you again, everybody in here, especially Curt, Bonk, and Okhwa.
So you see, that's why she's my best friend, because I only hang out with happy people. Tom Reynolds is one who's going to help you. So I'll send Tom Reynolds your email so you guys can correspond about curriculum and technology, right, Tom?
Curt, can you repeat that? I think you're muffled.
So I will send you his email so I can connect the two of you together about curriculum and technology, right?
Sure. Glad to.
So Dr. Kim, so I also said Kim, so I didn't know if Kim or Dr. Kim had a question. Was it you, Kim, or Dr.?
I did have a question for the panel.
So the last one, because it's really, just
yes,
real quick.
It is the last one. So I'm on sabbatical leave, and I just was promoted in my professor position. I'm at IU for a year, and I have struggled for the past 2 years with burnout. That's actually part of the reason why my sabbatical was granted, because my university felt that I would go running back to industry. So they're able to keep me for another year after sabbatical because of the contract I had to sign for it. So how do you, out of all of those years that you were in research and in teaching and education, how did you prevent burnout?
That's for Okhwa, right?
Yes.
So,
that's for everyone.
Everyone. Okay. So for all four of us. So by the way, tell them where you work at and what's your job. What discipline?
So I work at the State University of New York at Cobleskill. It's very similar to Berry College. We're about 1,800 students. We're an ag and technical college. We are 100% teaching, very little research. And I teach in the Department of Animal Science. I'm a dairy cattle management professor, and my specific discipline is reproductive physiology.
Wow.
So
This is
burnout.
really impressive to me because my dad had a herd management business. So
nice my fiance is a dairy nutritionist.
That's right. Nice to make your acquaintance.
Anything about the Okhwa? Go ahead about burnout.
Okay, networking. Your people, your colleague, their smiles, that prevented me from burning out. So if you keep good connections and friends who are supportive to you, you can always have energy, and you can prevent your burnout.
Mm-hmm.
Tom?
I think it's always learning new things. I think about my friend Connie Varnhagen from the University of Alberta. She was a full professor of psychology. She retired. She went back and got a degree in animal husbandry online, and then started traveling to sub-Saharan Africa doing workshops for people in very remote areas to help them take better care of their herds. And she actually had a solar-powered laptop and a solar-powered projector to do these little workshops and so forth. And to this day, she's continuing she runs an amazing veterinary service in her area for impoverished people. So it's learning new things. I'm right now involved in a course on learning to write short stories. And my first homework assignment was rewriting Little Red Riding Hood from the perspective of the wolf. So, always learning new things is really what it's all about.
Veronica?
Yeah, I agree. Again, I always start with I agree because I do. I think one of the things, and when you're young faculty, you're always constantly feeling the pressure to be evaluated. And so you have to perform, you have to do this, you have to do that, right? And that's par for the course. You have to hurt before you can actually understand why you're there, right? But eventually, I think that one of the things that really helps prevent burnout is that that there's a lot of things that you can contribute to your job, to your students, being a mentor. You may not be the best in whatever you think you should be the best in, but you're the best in what you yourself can contribute. So once you start looking at your job as providing service, right, to your students, to your community, then, you transcend, yourself. You're there for others, and that is very meaningful and very purposeful. And the other thing that I wanted to say is, Curt, can I share my screen?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Another way to prevent burnout is getting together with your colleagues when you're young. I'll share with you 8 pictures when we were young, okay? So here we are. When we were students doing presentations together, right? And I think that always being a part of a team, collaborating will really help you make it a little bit easier. Okay, so that's us a long time ago.
Veronica, it's only 2008. Come on, that's not.
Was it 2008? Was it? Okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
here we are, through thick and thin, through weight gain or weight loss, you're together. And these two have always been so sweet, look at that. That's a long time ago, okay. And there we are, somewhere in San Diego, I believe.
That's in Del Mar.
Oh, it is in Del Mar. Okay, and how about this one, Tom? Where was this?
Yeah, that's in
Del Mar still?
Oh no, that's in Huntington Beach.
Huntington Beach. Okay. And Curt, where's this?
This is in San Diego.
It's ARA, San Diego.
ARA,
Yeah,
San
that's
Diego.
ARA.
Okay. And same when there's Paul Kim. And there's Tom's brother.
Ralph Reynolds.
That's
Tom's
my
Ralph
brother.
Reynolds, yeah. Okay, and that's it.
Veronica,
That's
you forgot the ones in New Orleans.
Oh my God, that is, yeah. But just have fun. So don't take it too seriously. Life is, you just only live once. So enjoy every moment of it.
Tom Reynolds, you want to add?
I'll
a
harken
tip?
back to Tom Reeves and the notion of the conative and the different dimensions of our personality, that sort of thing. And in that intrinsically, your bliss, and what makes you happy, what makes you get up every day and with a smile on your face, that sort of thing. But there's also the cautionary tale of don't forget how to pivot. We all know how to do it. And sometimes those kind of like the missile guidance system, where those corrections make all the difference in the world.
So I'll agree with all of you about the friendship and the linkage and the connections and the happiness and all that. But I'll add one thing that hasn't been mentioned, and that is we want to control our environment in some ways. We don't want to be pawns of someone else. And so, this notion of being empowered or having some autonomy, because that sense of freedom to learn is what Carl Rogers talked about a long time ago. And I will say it from the standpoint of as an educator, you want to, Kim, you want to try and find ways to create a day for yourself to do, or even just 5 minutes for yourself to say that you controlled that 5 minutes. They're controlling you to do all these grading papers and do this and do that and mentor students and teach them, but do some things in bulk, teach courses back to back so you can free up time, whatever, especially summertime.
If you're Curt Bonk, you run for 750 days in a row.
It's only been 710, but okay, yeah.
Okay.
So you know, so that doesn't free up time, but it frees up your mind. So the thing you want to be is have a sense of purpose, as Veronica said, a purpose to help other people out. That's what Okhwa said too. But with that sense of purpose, you want to be creative. You want to exercise the creative spirit within you. And you can't do that without some sense of control over time. So time management becomes extremely important. And thinking about ways in which you control your time and not let someone else control your time. So I have a list of 10 ways to say no, 10 that are honest things and 10 that are dishonest. And I try not to go to the dishonest list. I try to go to the truthful list. And I'm going to be visiting my mother for the summer. Whatever it is on the list, that's on the dishonest list because she's dead now. But, I have things that are honest reasons to say no. If you don't say no to some things once in a while, you will not have that creative spirit. They will not give that creative spirit opportunities to generate things that you will take pride in, that will give you a sense of purpose. So the way to overcome burnout is say, hey, I'm going to help as many people as I can within my job, but I'm also going to try to store away like a squirrel stores away nuts in the wintertime. Put some time away for yourself. And so I do it with my paper daily planner. I know what days I'm going to have I can look at it anytime I want. I know that week is mine. And just knowing that week is mine, or those days are mine, or that 5 minutes is yours, will really change the mindset from burnout to opportunity. And that's where you want to have opportunities, possibilities, as well as purpose and helping as many other people out. So you want both. You want balance between helping everyone else and helping yourself out. And finding that balance is changing for everyone.
Curt, I got one more thing too.
Yeah.
And that's automatize that which can be automatized.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you're just offloading all of that cognitive load to a set of, I have set responses that I keep in kind of a deck. And if it's a form letter, or if it's a form response or whatever, and now with the technology, it appears as you're typing. And so you just, instead of typing words, or on my phone, you end up just punching in words, and all of a sudden the email is done. Automatize what can be automatized. You're not
talk to me. There are things that you can do ways to say no for things, and I can talk to you about that. We're going to end now. I want to thank everyone for coming in here. Maina, you haven't talked. I want to let you have the final word here and let's say goodbye, Maina, to everyone here in this session. So take it away.
I just want to say thanks to all the panelists. I really enjoyed this session a lot. Really, thanks a lot.
So we had an hour presentation before all this. So Maina and I are kind of longer than an hour and 15. So we're kind of tired now. Presented 8 research studies, but I thank all of you for staying extra tight. It's a long night for our class, but I think it's an important night. It's good to have these kinds of nights once in a while, and to see, all my students here and my old friends here is really special. So this has been a special day for me. And as some of you know, AERA made me a fellow today, or announced that. So it's been a real special day to come in and chat with all you guys, and for both Tom's help and support with letter writing for me from time to time. So let's try and do this again sometime and get an update from Okhwa. So good night from Bloomington. We'll talk to you all. Talk to you all later.
A big hug, Okhwa.
Big hug. Oh, a toast, Okhwa.
Yeah.
Big hug.
Okhwa. Big hug. May there be more. May there be more big sisters.
Is there any way that we could stay? Tom,
you can stay. You can stay, Veronica. Tom.
Yeah, Tom.
Yeah.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
you guys.
We're still recording, just so you know.
We'll see you, Christian.
Veronica wants to have one more margarita.
Thanks, Christian. Thanks,
You're still
Sahud.
recording, yeah. Make sure you stop.
Oh, I'll
recording.
stop the recording. Thank you for pointing that out. I'll stop it to the cloud.